and welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm your host, Kathy Healey. So I'm thrilled to introduce you to my first guest. He is the former assistant principal of Wakefield Memorial High School and current principal of the Dolbeare Elementary School here in Wakefield. Welcome, Mr. TJ Liberti.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for welcoming me here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start from the beginning. So tell us where you grew up.
I grew up in Saugus, Massachusetts, right next door to here, to Wakefield here.
Okay, you went to Saugus High?
I did. Graduated in 1997.
Great.
Had some great experiences there.
Great. Tell us a little bit about your high school experience.
It's like a lot of us, attending classes, of course. I was a three-sport athlete. I played soccer and ran track in winter and spring all 4 years.
Wow.
Try to get involved as much as I could. As a class officer 3 of the 4 years, and yeah, just
were
really.
You a president?
I was actually one of they had like kind of like a board of directors, if you will. So you had your 4 class officers, if you will, your traditional positions, and you had like kind of a board of directors. I was on like
terrific.
kind of
Terrific. So you had a good experience in high school.
I really did. I had some amazing teachers. Some great friends. I stay in touch with, and it was very similar to, I think, to a lot of the experiences that kids have today.
Oh, that's great. And did you know you wanted to be a teacher?
You know what? It's funny. I didn't until my junior year, as I'm sure we all experienced that kind of, what do I want to be when I grow up throughout our lives? And I just remember being in an English class and doing a class presentation. I think it was on soccer. It was like something you like and had to do a presentation on. And at the end of the presentation, one of my classmates said, just kind of as a joke, you should be a teacher, kind of like that, just off the cuff. And I said, all right, sounds like a good thing to do.
Summer's off.
So I said, I think at the time I was thinking that the vacations would have been nice until you get into it and see how much work goes into it. But it was, it was then that I really started thinking about being in teaching, and I really wanted to work with people. I wanted to be in a field that I wasn't stuck in a cubicle or in an office, but rather, working with people.
Working with kids.
Yeah, kids specifically. I think it's been such a rewarding experience.
Great, terrific. Yeah. And then you went off to Salem State University?
I did. I attended Salem State, at the time Salem State College, now Salem State University. And then upon entering, my initial major was elementary ed, early childhood education, and I ended up switching at the end of my freshman year to history for a major and secondary ed for a minor, because I really wanted to work with the older populations, high school specifically.
Okay.
And so pursued that, made some really great friends and great connections, people I still stay in touch with today that are teachers in different towns. And upon graduating Salem State, I ended up, getting a job at Wakefield, but also applying and enrolling at Salem State for my master's as well.
That's terrific. And did you play any sports in college? Or?
No, I did do some intramurals, some soccer here and there. Still ran a lot of road races and things just to kind of stay healthy. But I was never, I think at the upper echelon of the soccer teams there. Salem State had a very competitive, soccer program, and but I really, when you start going to college, for those of out there that have played at the collegiate level, it is like a job, and I really wanted to focus on my studies and still work and make some money and pursue that.
Wow. So when you were a teacher, you also coached, right?
I did. I had a great opportunity to coach the junior varsity girls soccer team for about 4 or 5 years here in Wakefield, and worked with some amazing people, Janelle Stevenson, Jessica, Marshall Cummings, as well as some others. And it was such a great way. I think that's one of the great thing about teaching, is you get to work with kids in kind of different areas and really be true mentors and support them. And I hope the girls that I coached got as much from me as I received from them.
I'm sure
they did. It was a tremendous opportunity experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. So what was the hardest part about teaching?
I think the hardest part about teaching is you do wear a lot of hats, and I think, when I think about administration and teaching, there's a lot of parallels with, you always have to be on your game. I think the one thing about education, not unlike your next guest is, I'm sure, going to talk about being on stage, and you you always have to be on top of your game as an educator. You really, there's no way of hiding things. And I think it's very important. I think as an early educator, I always worried, and even as an early administrator, I always kind of worried about having to have all the answers, that, you have this group that is looking to you to answer questions and to have all this knowledge. And I think that a lot of teachers in the early part of their careers have this kind of sense of urgency and this fear that they have to know everything. And that's really not the case. Right. But I think that was one of the hardest parts, I think, in transitioning to that role, is feeling that pressure of knowing to know everything.
Right, definitely. So what was the best part?
I think working with the kids, I share the stories of with my staff now, and just thinking about the kids you work with, and we work with such a diverse population of students, and their learning needs and their desires, where they like to go to in their lives, and to be a trusted adult, to be a confidant, to be kind of a mentor to these kids, to help them get to where they want to be, and to be a part of that journey that they're on, I think is the most rewarding thing. It's not about just teaching mathematics or history or English or science or wellness or art or whatever the course that you're teaching. It's really about shaping them and helping them to become the people that they want to be and pursue the areas that they want to pursue. And so being that kind of guide along their pathway of life is such a rewarding experience.
Absolutely, yes.
So, I know. You're in that role as well.
Yep.
Your role is very important into that as well.
Yes. So tell us about when you became the department coordinator of the history department.
So Rich Metropolis, who's now the principal at Wakefield High, had moved on to a new role in another town, and I took over for him. And it was a surreal experience in the sense of was my first leadership role. I was inheriting a very strong department. The history department, as it is today, is very strong, strong teachers, and it was a learning experience for me about how to best guide them and take the department into that next step. I mean, Rich and Dan Blanchard before him, the late Dan Blanchard, who was a tremendous educator for a lot of years here at Wakefield, really helped to direct us in a positive kind of way, and to take over a department for those two was big shoes to fill. Yes. But again, I had a tremendous group of teachers to work with, so Absolutely. It was a lot of fun and a great experience.
That's great. And as a history major and history buff, what historical figure, if you could?
It's tough. I mean, there's so many to choose from. I think I go back and forth. Philosophically, I'm a big believer in inclusion. I'm a big believer in acceptance of individual difference, much like our core values that we have, not only at the high school, but as our district as a whole. So I think of figures like Martin Luther King and Abraham Lincoln and people that were faced with such adversity. You think about where Lincoln came into a presidency where literally we talk about a nation divided. It was a nation truly divided, and having to kind of lead during that time and to make some decisions that were not very popular with a lot of people. Martin Luther King Jr., just somebody that was such a powerful voice for equality, and somebody that was really the greatest speaker, I would argue, of the 20th century, just such an amazing, powerful person. So I just think of those two individuals, it's a tough toss-up between the two, and there's so many to speak of, but just to be able to pick their brains a little bit and talk with them about how they dealt with the adversity that they were faced with, and how to learn from them, I think would be such a tremendous opportunity.
Absolutely. And then came assistant principal.
Yeah, so. It was definitely a jump earlier in my career than I anticipated. I had been a teacher for 10 years. I loved the classroom. Really never envisioned leaving it. I had pursued a CAGS after my master's in school administration, just to give me an opportunity if I ever chose to go into that role later. And I had applied for an assistant principalship after Dr. Smith became principal, and that was, I think, year 6, and just wasn't quite ready. I felt like I still needed some more time in the classroom. And then the opportunity kind of presented itself again when Jane Farrar retired.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just such a a wonderful opportunity to work with somebody that I really consider a mentor and a friend, a close friend and confidant, Kim Smith. And, you know, I knew that her time and her trajectory was such that she would not be as a principal for, you know, for her career. I just saw her as a shining star. So I wanted an opportunity to work under her and with her to learn as much as I could. So when I saw the opportunity, I decided to take it and came into the role. To be honest, had no idea what I was getting myself into. I think when you look at something from afar, like a lot of jobs that we take and apply for, what we see on the surface is never really what the job is. So it definitely was a learning curve, but I had tremendous colleagues. Dennis O'Leary, who was a tremendous assistant principal here for a lot of years, and he is dearly missed
Absolutely.
as a colleague and friend here at Wakefield High. But I think that, you know, he, along with AJ Beebe and the rest of the admin team, it was a great opportunity for me to step in. So
absolutely. So I worked with you during the first year. So I know it was a very challenging position. What was the most challenging part of being the AP there?
I think the one thing I had the most difficulty with is there's so much that flies at you at once. I think like any leadership role, or, you know, you're doing a lot of problem solving, and there's a you know, where as a teacher, there's a lot that comes at you, but there's a structure to your day. You know when your classes are, and there may be some curveballs within that. But as assistant principal, you know, you can all, you know, they always say, you know, there's an old adage that, you know, the best laid plans sometimes don't always go to fruition. And I tell you, there was many days where I set a calendar, I set a schedule for myself, and there's one or two things that happen, whether it be discipline or some type of, you know, emergency or concern, student need that kind of caused you to kind of reprioritize the day. So I think that was one of the things that it just took me time to learn how to best structure your day in a way that you're still able to get to the things that you need to get to, but also, you know, as we know, we worked on a couple different things that came up in our careers together, and but I think the benefit also kind of shifting towards the good things, I'm sure that might be your next question, is I had the opportunity to work with yourself and the rest of the guidance team and the teachers. And I think when you're an assistant principal and as a counselor, whether it be a school psychologist or guidance counselor, and even as teachers and coaches, we work with some of the most vulnerable populations, you know, the kids that need the most love and care and support. And I think when we talk about reward system, you know, that's really what it's about, right? It's about helping those kids that, you know, may get into trouble a little bit more because of things that are going on in school or out of school within their own selves. And I think that the assistant principalship, it provided me an opportunity to really work with a wider range of students and really be instrumental also to the teachers and mentor teachers, which has been really great.
Absolutely.
So,
And then came principalship.
That was kind of, again, like the assistant principalship, it was kind of out of left field. So, you know, Kim Smith and I had talked about, you know, as she's been my mentor, as I said, for a long time, and she really has been coaching me about, you know, what my trajectory is, and I have a long time left in my career, about 20 years, which is a lifetime, it feels like. And I looked at, you know, kind of my trajectory and where I wanted to go, and she had started talking to me about, you know, stop thinking about leadership. I know I never wanted to leave Wakefield. I love this town. I love the kids. I love the families. My colleagues are really my family. You know, I grew up in this town. I met my wife in this town.
That's right.
So I really feel a very close connection with Wakefield and Wakefield High, of course. So, you know, Kim approached me last year, probably around May, and you know, the Dolbeare position was, you know, coming up, and there was the potential, I think, towards late May, where you know, my predecessor, Dr. Hughes, was resigning and taking another job, and also the Walton principal was resigning. And late June, when this kind of all came to fruition, it was very late in the year to hire. So Kim had approached me and said, listen, we're going to put our feelers out there, we're going to post the positions, but if I can't fill both positions, would you be interested? And I said to Kim, you know, I'll do whatever you need. I want to do what's best for the district. I want to do what's best for the town and for our kids. So if you think that I would be a good fit for an intern position, I'd love to do it. late July, after they finished the search, they felt like they had one great candidate who they hired for Walton, Elaine Byrne, and they weren't 100% on the other candidates, and she approached me and said, would you be willing? And I said, of course.
Oh,
so I stepped into an interim role at Dolbeare and not knowing what to expect, and it's been a great experience. As you know, I accepted a 3-year commitment. I just signed my 3-year contract with them. It was the easiest, hardest decision I ever had to make because I love Wakefield Memorial High School and the kids so much, and the families of my colleagues and friends.
Yes.
But I just felt like professionally this was a good move for me.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah,
well,
I had some great people.
We miss you at the high school.
Miss you guys too. I really do. I miss the kids.
The kids miss you. We all miss you.
I miss you guys too.
But I want to thank you for being on the show.
Yeah.
And I want to hope that you can stay around for our next guest.
Love to, yeah.
And so my next guest is a local, he's a local comedian.
You ever wake up late for work in the morning and you're all frazzled because you know you're running late? And I did this one day and I'm flying down the highway and I realize it's Saturday. Right? So I go back to bed. I wake up around 2 in the afternoon and I realize I work on Saturday. I call my boss. I says, I was almost there. I was.
And welcome, Brad Mastrangelo.
Thank you.
Thank you so
So great
much.
to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh my God. Like I said, we went to school together and she looks just like she did in high school. She looks terrific.
And like I said, you must need glasses.
You could have said I looked the same too, but you did
I'm
not.
sorry. I'm sorry. You do look quite
Gave her
similar.
that right thing in there and she just
Served it right
similar.
up.
right up.
That's right, we did. We went to high school together
Yes, we
right here
did.
at Wakefield Memorial High School,
Yeah.
class of 1982. I don't care if anyone knows my age. I hope you don't mind.
My age is 53, going on 54 next month, but I'm happy because the alternative isn't that good.
That's right. And we had some really good teachers back then in the
had some
early
great
80s at Wakefield High.
Yeah, I know you had mentioned Dan Blanchard.
Yep.
And he
Yeah.
he was my tennis coach, but he
Yeah.
was a great
that's
guy.
right.
Oh, I love Dan.
And
Blanchard.
Nancy Frederick.
I had her for social studies.
Yeah,
Yep.
me too.
Fantastic
Yeah.
teacher.
Yeah, very good teacher.
Very good.
So tell us, after Wakefield High, did you go off to college? Or?
I did.
Okay.
I first actually went to Husson College with some classmates of ours, Mark Stackhouse, Glenn Flanagan,
yeah.
Billy Lebinski. We went up and played soccer.
Did you all live together there?
Yeah.
Oh,
We were
boy.
up there for,
I
for
won't
a
ask
year.
any more questions
That's all.
about that.
No. It's a family show. And then I transferred to Bridgewater State. And that's where I
okay.
ended up graduating. Bridgewater
And
State.
what's your degree in?
Communications.
Communication.
Like I
So
say, it was either comedy or would you like flies or fries? With that, depending on the story.
Sometimes the flies are
Could
in
be
the fries.
flies. Could be fries.
could be fries. Okay, great. And how was your college experience? Though, was it a good
It was
experience?
good.
Or?
Yeah, Bridgewater State, and you went to Salem.
Salem,
State.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of a middle class, which is not too uppity. I mean, I applied to Harvard just for the goof, but it was a lot of city kids, a lot of good variation, and I enjoyed it a lot. I really did.
Very good.
Yeah,
Very good.
yeah.
So growing up, were you funny at home, or were you like the funny kid?
I was probably funny at home. I have a very funny family. School, not so much, and you'll probably remember, I was considered shy. I was really into sports. I played soccer, and hockey, and little baseball, and tennis, as you're doing.
Yeah.
But I would think most people would probably say to you, because people come to me at shows that we went to school with, it's
Yeah.
so funny, and they'll look at me and go, "You weren't funny in high school," which is nice. And I would say, "Well, you weren't chubby."
That's great. Yeah. Well, I know your brother Chris was really funny, and
Yeah.
like your brother Chris and my brother Dave were good friends,
Very good
and they
friends.
actually had a show here on WCAT called Trivia something. We don't know what the rest of it was, but
That's the trivia,
apparently, apparently they said it was David. My brother David was saying it was quite a hit back in the late
I bet.
80s. But
I've got to see that.
we have to really
tape.
see it to believe it. But
Chris is funny.
Yeah. So
my
they
brother
were good
Peter,
friends.
they're all very funny. I just had the guts to get up and do it. I guess that's what it comes down to.
Right.
Yeah.
So you didn't know in high school or in college that you were going to be a comedian. It
Oh,
just
God,
kind of
no. It just,
was it on a dare? Like,
on
how
a-
did you actually get
yeah.
into the field?
just like you say, it was just on a dare. I was going through kind of a crazy time in my life, and my friends kept, "Well, come on, you're funny." I said, "I'm funny with you. I'm not funny
Yeah.
with strangers." So just to shut them up, I went to Nick's Comedy Stop in Boston, an open mic night, and I was the only open micer. They were all professional comedians that just come in to work on material. So I said, "Oh, this is really going to be interesting." So But I wasn't even nervous because I figured I'd just make a fool of myself, and then we'd all laugh about it
And
20
go
years
home.
later,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But people were laughing. I was talking, I don't even know, I think growing up Italian, get my father smacking me around or something like that, which is funny, I think, anyways. And not bad smacking, I'm
Not
just
nowadays.
spanking. And people laughed, and then they asked me to come back, and I said, "You're crazy." And then they said they'd give me money, and I said, "Oh, what time do you need me?" And that's how it happened. I mean, the rest, as they say, is history. Now I'm working on cruise ships. I did Comics Come Home with Dennis Leary. That was a huge thrill a few years back. He had asked me to, I was at the Agganis Arena in front of
What was he
7,000
like?
people. Dennis Leary, he was very nice to me, real, you know, more serious. I mean, he has a big production company, but, you know, he was very, very nice to me, and gave me that, asked me to come in. That's comics, some of the best comics around the country are asked to come in, and that was really something.
That's
7,000
flattering.
people
Yes.
doing
Oh,
stand-up.
good for you.
So that was, yeah.
So what's the toughest part about being a comedian?
I think nowadays, just with so much political correctness, not offending, which I'm pretty clean most of the time anyways. I don't really offend. I tell a lot of stories, you know, which is, but, you know, sometimes people nowadays, as teachers, you guys know, it's, you know, the slightest thing can set people off. And so I think that's probably just to make sure you want to make everybody happy.
And speaking of
balance,
that,
yeah.
speaking of that, what do you do when you have a heckler in the crowd that won't stop?
I fight them. I hit them and I
Take
kick
him outside?
them. I did do that once though. I'll tell you. Funny.
Did
This is
you?
a true story. Years ago, this guy was he was inebriated and he wouldn't stop, and he's with his wife, and I stopped. I said, "Look, you know, no need to be. Everyone's trying to have fun. You're really kind of screwing up for everyone." And he went on. I said, "Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like dealing with hecklers." I said, "So what we're going to do is I'm off in about 15 minutes, and we're going to go out. We're going to fight." And his face was priceless. He's like, I go, "Yeah, we're gonna fight." I go, "You may beat me. I don't think so, but you may." And we're gonna go out back. And the wife is looking at me. I go, "No, I'm totally serious. We're gonna." But I have 15 minutes left. So, and it was so good because he didn't know how to take me, and he shut up finally for the rest of the
Oh my gosh!
I mean, he could have killed me. I have no idea, but I got through it.
Gosh.
But usually you just start picking on them, and the crowd is with you because they're having a good time, and they're interrupting the crowd too. They don't want hecklers. They didn't pay for that.
Yeah, it's
so.
very awkward.
It is.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And how do you remember all your jokes night after night?
It's a good question. I think you do it so much that it becomes a part of your brain. You know, this is your job, and a lot of times I tell a lot of stories about just real life, so that makes it a little easier. And you can add to those stories. I find, like, if you're on a cruise ship, you'll probably have 15 new jokes right just from what's happening day to day on the cruise ship.
All the food poisoning jokes and
all
the seasick
the stuff,
and all.
the seasickness of the people with those patches.
Yeah.
I love them. I get right in front of them and I just kind of go back and forth. Just until they throw
That's
up.
great.
So I know some comedians, Don Rickles was just known for this, just off the cuff, that's never really wrote anything. I'm sure you find that balance. Do you find yourself in the middle of a set actually doing some of that?
Absolutely.
Just be based off what you saw or something that pops into your head?
Absolutely. What's going on in the crowd. And it's fun that way for me, and it's usually fun for the crowd, especially when the crowd can relate to it because they're kind of living
they've
through
seen
it
it too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Improv is a lot of fun.
That's terrific. And besides Dennis Leary, what stars or comedians inspired you?
Oh, I loved Robin Williams. I thought he was so funny. You know, Rickles. A lot of guys around Boston. I mean, I've become very good friends with Lenny Clark, and Lenny's so funny and such a great guy. And Don Gavin. There's some guys in Boston that are just so talented. I mean, I've traveled the country and worked with other comics, and it always comes back to the guys back here. They couldn't hold a candle to most of the guys around here. It's really interesting.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And if you weren't a comedian, what would you be doing?
I'd be a therapist.
A therapist?
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I don't know. I mean, I like you guys are teaching, and I've always I always think that might have been a lot of fun, you know, and it would just, I just didn't know enough about the subject to teach, but the actual teaching.
But I think, you know, to your point though, you're on stage,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
and we were talking earlier. It's you know, education is like being on stage. You have to
Absolutely.
be comfortable in front of people. And I used to always tell people that were going into education, you can learn the curriculum. You can't learn people skills.
No.
You can't learn those interpersonal skills that are needed to be able to connect with people. And I'm sure when you're on stage, there's that connection with the
Yes.
crowd, right? There's that
Yep.
connection with your audience.
Absolutely.
And in many ways, you know, similar to the kids. You may not be
Yeah.
able to say the same things.
No, but I think you'll agree. I think most of our favorite teachers we like because they were funny
Yeah,
or
that's
entertaining,
right.
engaging, and
Yeah.
and you would never think of missing their classes. You know,
Right,
you
right.
wanted to go.
Yeah.
'Cause- and I think those are the ones who taught the most because you just
Right.
remembered it more because
Right.
you just
Yep.
loved them.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Because we all had some of those teachers that you go.
So tell us how you met your wife. I know that's a funny story.
It's a good story.
Yeah.
I worked in the prison system when I got out of college. John McGonigal from Wakefield was the sheriff at the time.
Yeah.
And I had been a prison guard while I was in college because the money was good to help pay for school.
Oh.
And back then, you didn't have to do training or anything. My uncle was a Revere cop. I had his pants that were 3 sizes too big and a shirt, and they just threw you up in the prison. And so then when I graduated, I worked in town for a little while, and Mr. McGonigal said, you know, you have your degree, why don't you be a counselor? So I was a counselor. Yeah, think about that for a second, me being a counselor. And my wife was a counselor, so
Okay.
we actually did meet in prison.
That's so
and,
funny.
But I'll tell you a quick little story. In Wayland, where I live, they did an article on me in the local paper. My daughter was in preschool. And of course, where'd you meet your wife? And it came across in the article that I was in prison. My wife dropped my daughter Sophia at preschool, and she called me. She goes, Brad, you have to call them. She goes, I had 3 mothers saying, we would have never thought Brad was in prison. So I said, let them think it. They won't bother us.
Exactly.
So
They
that
won't
really
bother
that
you.
was really funny. Yeah, they
Oh
thought.
my God, that's
That's
a great
great.
So,
story.
Yeah, and I was born in Chelsea originally, so you know that we have that going for us.
Yeah, that's
As
too.
far as the prison thing.
That's great. That's great. And what do you do for fun, both you guys? I didn't get a chance to ask TJ. But
Oh,
You
TJ
guys-
was into sports a lot. Same
Yeah.
thing with me.
Sports.
I still play tennis. I know you're
Yep.
the coach.
Yep.
I still play tennis. I play old man soccer, I call it. I still play soccer, which
Oh,
is
that's
really
great.
funny. Yeah, I have one daughter. She's big into sports, so I used to coach all her teams, and that was fun. Now she's in high school, so I get to watch. And
that's
we like to
terrific.
travel a little
Yeah.
bit, and the comedy helps us do that.
And your cruising, is that down in the Bermuda area, or where are the...
All over. We've been to Europe.
okay. Oh.
Yeah, Alaska's a real fun
Yeah.
trip. A lot of the
Okay.
Caribbean. But yeah, we've been, Greece and Turkey and Italy and a lot of the
Wow.
Mediterranean. And
Oh my God.
my daughter's been all around the world where,
Oh my
we
gosh.
were at like Revere Beach if we were lucky. That was a,
Sure.
Growing up.
That was it for us.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Oh, that's terrific.
So it's been, knock on wood, it's been fun. It's
do you,
been.
do you prefer the cruise ships, or do you prefer like staying in local, or...
I don't like being away a whole bunch, but I
Yeah.
kind of set it up where I'm away for maybe a week, 2 at the very most,
Yeah.
and then back home. So, because I don't like missing a lot of my daughter's sports and
Right,
stuff. So I'm lucky enough. I have a manager who sets all that up. So.
Oh, that's terrific.
But I still like the clubs. I do like corporate stuff too, private events.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrific. That's terrific. So, is it like a partnership with all the other comedians, or like a community
Yeah, it's a
group?
great
So you guys
community.
all kind of...
It really
Do
is.
you have
It's a lot of fun. I was saying we do a lot of fundraisers. We do, if someone's sick or something. So it's
Okay.
really nice that this group of guys and women, a lot of women comics that are very
Yeah.
good. You just call them, or they'll call us, and we're there. And I think
That's
that
nice.
gives back so much. And it's corny, but it just feels so right to do.
It's like a
Right.
family. I bet
It really
it's,
is
it's like a family.
Like
yeah.
teaching.
Yeah, like in
Yeah.
education.
Yeah,
same
absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely.
Kind of like a family.
Yeah.
So do you guys ever try to get the spotlight from each other when you're all together in a group like that? Like, does anyone...
It's fun.
Is it,
We
yeah.
just recently took a trip. It was about 20 of us. We went for a day down to Foxwoods just to kind of get away. We rented a bus. Imagine
Oh
20
my
comedians.
God, 20
Oh,
comedians in a
down at
bus.
Foxwoods, yeah. No, they're all. I think we all know each other, where we know our talents and levels, and there's really not a big rivalry.
Oh, that's
Sometimes there's
good.
younger people coming up, and they might want to step on your heels and try to get above you. And But you know what? If you're funny, if you're talented, that's how you're going to do it.
Right.
So I tell people, if you ever think of doing it,
That's
do
what I was
it.
going to say.
Do it once.
Yep.
Because then you can never look back and say, oh, I wish I tried it, you know?
Right, go to
Because if
open
you're not
mic.
good, you'll know real fast.
Oh, right. The audience will let you know,
The
right?
audience will let you know,
So go to
yeah.
open mic night.
Open mic nights, absolutely.
And just try to get in
Just
that
try it,
way. And
yeah.
You have to be natural, though, right?
I think it helps,
Yeah.
you know? I think because people can tell if you're really trying too hard
Yeah.
to do it. I think the best compliment you can have is, oh my God, you look so natural up there. When,
Oh, right.
You know, and I
Right.
think that's what you want. You
Right.
want to just,
What were you going to say?
I was going to say something that Brad was talking about also earlier was, just how important it is to, education. You talked about maybe being a teacher,
Yeah.
and I think that, the message that you have about, taking those risks, getting out there, you had talked a little bit about, I don't know if we have time for the story, you
Yeah.
were telling us offset about, trying to convince, Wayland,
Yeah.
teachers about, really
class.
having a class on comedy,
comedy,
and really it's such an important skill, right?
Self-confidence.
Absolutely.
So much.
And industry is looking for that now. It's no longer you kind of behind the scenes a little bit. You have to have those communication skills. So I think that
Right.
that's such a great message for young
Absolutely.
people to hear.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you both for coming on the show. I
Thank
really
you.
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
It's great to see you both.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching Talk of the Town.
Thank you.